Obamacare, easily one of the largest and most complicated laws that's been passed in decades.
Now there are growing concerns that it could be vulnerable to widespread fraud. So here to help us understand this is Judge Andrew Napolitano, Fox News senior judicial analyst. Hi, Judge.
Hello, Allison. Hi, Bill.
Explain how Obamacare might be particularly vulnerable to kickbacks, bribes, and widespread fraud.
Well, you know, there is federal law that prohibits kickbacks, and in other words, it would prohibit a seller of medical devices or a seller of pharmaceuticals from giving money to officials in a hospital in return for buying the devices or buying the pharmaceuticals. That's commonly known as a bribe or a kickback. Obamacare is exempted from the federal anti-kickback law, meaning the government has said it will not enforce the federal laws prohibiting kickbacks with respect to Obamacare. So that's big picture potential for fraud. Small picture potential for fraud is what's known as the credits. Obamacare makes certain people qualify for credits, that is, reimbursement to them for the cost of their health care, by loosening the standards as to who qualifies for credits. And credits come from the IRS. Your tax bill is reduced depending upon how your income is. It can make it easier or harder for the administration to decide who gets these credits.
So just break it down just to be a bit more precise here. The law actually removes an aspect that could potentially crack down on fraud?
The law
that's been weakened?
The law authorizes the Secretary of Health and Human Services to remove the ability of the Justice Department to enforce the anti-kickback law with respect to the delivery of health care services in the United States.
Now, Judge, the kickback law is in place for Medicare.
Yes.
And it works well.
Yes.
Why would they remove it from Obamacare?
Well, for the same reason that there's so much wiggle room for almost everything in Obamacare, to allow the president and his administration to punish his enemies and to reward his supporters, to relieve his supporters of burden, and to grant his supporters the benefit. That's why there's a delay here and there's an acceleration there. I've never seen in 40 years of watching and analyzing federal law so much wiggle room in the hands of the executive branch as there is in Obamacare. It is clear that they knew from the get-go this was not going to work as they thought it would. It is clear that they knew from the get-go there would be serious problems, and so they gave the president or his designee, in this case Secretary Sebelius, extraordinary, unheard of authority to decide which laws will be enforced and which laws won't.
If that's the case when it comes to the kickback and the fraud, that means the price could balloon here, Judge.
Precisely, because this is the reason that kickbacks are illegal. Who pays for them? The consumer ends up paying a higher price when you go to a hospital that has paid a kickback because we absorb the cost of the kickback. So this will in turn shoot up insurance premiums for those who pay them and shoot down insurance premiums for those who have them paid for by the taxpayers, which is the rest of us.
Well, why are you the only one talking about this? It's the first time I've heard of this.
Because your producers were kind enough to ask me to discuss this unpleasant subject matter with you.
You knew about it?
No. Honestly, I did not know about this until about 2 days ago, when those of us who watch this stuff became aware of it. But this is the first time I've discussed it on air, and it's with the two of you, my dear friends and colleagues.
Thanks so much, Judge, for explaining it to us. We will obviously follow up and have you back on. Thank you.
Pleasure. No matter what we talk about, it's a pleasure.
Always.
Thanks, Judge.